Well, good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news. We're broadcasting live and then we're available on demand. And we are available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple Television, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, YouTube, and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It's Monday, July 24th, 2023. We're live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson, and this evening we bring you the news of and a perspective representing the LGBTQ+ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens unique in LGBTQ+ news, you will see and hear it here.
Hotspots Magazine Happening Out Television Network is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same models of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ+ community. Our mission? Support the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ+ community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of our Black community, Latino, lesbian and queer women, trans, student youth, seniors, HIV/AIDS, healthcare, business, social justice, and faith. Help us support our community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ+ media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network. Our magazine is celebrating 38 years of the LGBTQ+ experience, and our television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and broader community.
Let's welcome Elimination. He is a pansexual member of the kink and fetish community, an educator and community leader. He was the founding president of Onyx Deep South and also represented our community at International Mr. Leather as Mr. Ramrod. Besides his charitable work, he has campaigned for self-acceptance with his I Am Enough initiative. Welcome, Elimination.
In the gay agenda, Stonewall Back to the Drive celebration with Billy Porter, September 21st. Stonewall Back to the Drive celebration with Billy Porter will be held on September 21st from 6 to 10 p.m. at the venue in Wilton Manors. With books and education under attack across the country, Billy Porter, the star of Broadway and TV's Pose, is speaking out and joining the fight. The Stonewall National Museum, Archives, and Library is one of the largest gay archives and libraries in the United States. This night will be filled with music and dance, fun and food, in support of all the programs run by Stonewall, including the Stonewall National Education Program. The event will be sponsored by the National Education Association, Comcast, NSU Florida, and the Windhover Foundation. Further details about the event and tickets are available on stonewallmuseum.org.
Let's welcome John Hayden. A journalist for 28 years, he now works for several outlets, including Out South Florida, as senior reporter and community editor. Welcome, John.
In the gay agenda, The Basement, a party exclusively for women-loving women, August 4th. Enjoy this special event from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. at Koa Bar and Grill. The night is organized by Merely Entertainment with sound by Hi Ricky and Seawave. This event is part of Girls on Gals Weekend. August 4th will be a night of entertainment, culture, and pride. The event will feature some of the hottest lesbian and queer DJs and she-Js. It's time to grab your girls and your girlfriends and have a fun night for yourself. Tickets start from $10 in advance and $15 at the door, and they're available at mrlyentertainment.com.
Let's welcome anchor Gregg Shapiro, an inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Gregg is the author of 9 books. His entertainment coverage, including celebrity interviews, runs in a variety of print and online publications. Welcome, Gregg.
Happy National Cousins Day, cousins.
Kissing cousins.
In the gay agenda, Lesbian Thespians Story Slam, I'll Never Do That Again, July 29th. Story Slam, I'll Never Do That Again by Lesbian Thespians will be held on July 29th in the Our Fund Auditorium located at ArtServe from 7 to 9 p.m. With the theme of I'll Never Do That Again, it will be a fun-filled evening featuring 5-minute true stories from storytellers. They will compete for cash prizes that will be awarded based on audience votes at the show's end. Lesbian Thespians is an inclusive performing arts group founded and led by women. It is dedicated to diversity and innovation in art. Further details and tickets are available at lesbianthespians.com.
We are the reporters of Queer News Tonight, and this evening we bring you the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Monday, July 24th. Let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Visit Lauderdale presents Dine Out Lauderdale for Restaurant Month. If your culinary chops are up to the task, Fort Lauderdale will soon beckon with Dine Out Lauderdale, a promotion encouraging you to eat across Broward County at an affordable clip. Like Miami Spice, this long-standing food-focused event provides local gourmands a great opportunity to wine and dine through August. Visit Lauderdale, the organization responsible for promoting tourism in Greater Fort Lauderdale, has announced the 80 restaurant lineup for this year's event, which begins Tuesday, August 1st, and continues through August 31st. Diners who visit participating restaurants can choose from price points of $45, $55, and $75 per person, each including a curated 3-course meal with elevated flair created specifically for Dine Out's journey. In addition to seated meals and pairings, Dine Out has expanded its offerings with discounts on sweets and treats, brunches, happy hours, and exclusive culinary experiences such as cooking classes this year. The new deals aim to encourage South Floridians to explore their local food culture. Restaurants interested in participating in the event can register themselves at Visit Lauderdale's website. Many restaurants from Pompano, Coconut Creek, Coral Springs, Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale, and other cities are participating in the event. Well, it's a fun program, of course. In LGBT, we know, like theater, we report in our theater campaigns that we go to the theater 2.5 times more than our straight allies. Well, I have not heard of specific documentation in dining out, but I suspect it is the exact same thing. So this is a bullseye for what Visit Lauderdale is doing for LGBT.
Well, my husband Rick is a restaurant critic. He writes the hot dish column in Out South Florida, and I think he would agree that restaurants in South Florida definitely rival those in other cities, especially those known for their culinary acclaim.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, this is an opportunity to do balling on a budget. I mean, where can you go and have a great meal with a select price point, 3-course meal, and enjoy restaurants that you may not ever get the opportunity to go? And so I love when we have restaurant month, restaurant week, where we can kind of plan out all the places that we can go, and then you look really big when you're shooting a date on a nice night.
You know, I was and specifically an entertainment and lifestyle journalist for many years, and I always loved when August came around because we mentioned Miami Spice, but also because I live in Lauderdale. All the great restaurants here. This year, 2 Wilton Manors restaurants, Bravo, which does amazing Peruvian cuisine, is participating, and Union Kitchen is also participating over on Dixie Highway. But there are also great restaurants. There's beach restaurants like Aruba Cafe. So, you know, if you want something very casual, there are some more formal places that are having it. So it's really anything you want to try at any style level. If you want to wear shorts and flip-flops, if you want to, maybe dress up a little bit, you can do it this month. And it's really fun. And I don't think those calories count. I'm pretty sure.
You get a pass.
I do. You do.
One last thing before we move on, which I did not know until recently. Of course, everybody knows Food and Wine in South Beach and in Miami Beach. But Fort Lauderdale, Visit Lauderdale has a dining event that's coming in January. We're going to be reporting on it, which is great because it elevates the quality of the dining experience to art. And really, at the end of the day, that's what dining is all about.
Bon appetit, Al. Next, let's queer up education. Florida Board of Education passes new rules on gender and race.
Despite heavy criticism, the Florida Department of Education approved new standards for social studies covering African American history. So what your children learn in class this upcoming school year will change. The new standards impact lessons for kindergarten students through high school. The kindergarten lesson will recognize African American inventors and explorers. One of the many high school lessons examines the range and variety of specialized roles performed by enslaved people. In the Department of Education meeting Wednesday, Florida teachers objected to the new rules, asking the board to put the proposal on hold.
State officials have approved new rules dealing with gender identity and internet use in school. The members, who were all appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis or his predecessor, implemented several laws that were approved by state legislators this year. One law restricts transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming students and teachers' ability to use the bathrooms of their choice. Another bars teachers from asking students for their pronouns and says they can't be required to use students' and other teachers' pronouns if they don't align with their sex at birth. It also bars teachers from sharing their pronouns if they don't align with their sex assigned at birth. They also approved Black history standards, which critics call a big step backwards, as it attempts to put a positive spin on slavery. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis defended the new curriculum, saying slavery gave Black people a personal benefit because they developed skills.
Your clarification on one thing within the policy. It says instruction includes how slaves develop skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. Could you just explain why?
Well, you should talk to them about it. I mean, I didn't do it, and I wasn't involved in it. But I think what they're doing is I think that they're probably going to show some of the folks that eventually parlayed, being a blacksmith into doing things later in life. But the reality is all of that is rooted in whatever is factual. They listed everything out. And if you have any questions about it, just ask the Department of Education. You can talk about those folks. But I mean, these were scholars who put that together. It was not anything that was done politically.
What a weasel. Ron DeSantis is unquestionably a racist. He appoints racist people to carry out his racist ideas, and he wants to take that to the national level. The pronouns are important, but petty in the grand scheme of how we're going to teach our children and what we're going to teach them. Because if we're not going to accurately teach Black history or BIPOC history, Native American history, we're certainly not going to be teaching LGBTQ plus history. And there's a lot of overlap in those histories. He is a terrible person, and I'm just glad. While Florida will have to suffer through him for 2 years, it looks like an extra 2 years. It looks like we'll be able to spare America from his wrath.
Yeah, for sure. Not satisfied with destroying the lives of LGBTQ plus students, DeSantis and his evil minions, because that's what they are, they've now under the object of an international ridicule with this slavery thing. What was it? Anna Navarro apparently went off on The View today. Profanity laden. This is national news, and it's like embarrassing. And they are simply putting the duh back in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So, I thank you guys for your comments. I kind of wanted to wait. Clearly, this touches me. So one of the things that I challenged America is to realize that the folks that were stolen and brought here already were well ingested with their trades, already had well organization or communities that was already organized. So the quote unquote trades that he's saying that these folks learned through enslavement is not actually true. We know that there's many falsehoods that are being told in this curriculum, because if you really dive into this curriculum, a lot of the people that they name were not really enslaved Americans well, enslaved folks. Because, we still fight the fight of whether or not we're truly considered as, Americans, although we've been here and always will be, per se. Additionally, what this is doing is forcing educators to do education malpractice. Because as an educator, how do you tell a story and only tell half, and then do a falsehood to our children? And that's going to put so many teachers in such a risk that we're going to lose so many wonderful educators who want to do great things. I was in a classroom for 10 plus years, ran education programs. The bathroom, I don't want to harp too much on after the slavery thing, because we all know, we can beat that to the point that we all know enslaved folks had no choice. And we also know that, as he said, they parlayed this into wealth. Well, that wasn't the case, as we know throughout history, because we're still waiting for the wealth that was promised. But even teachers are put in place to provide safety and security for children. And if you cannot address a child and make them feel safe and comfortable, they're not going to be able to learn from an educator and inside the schoolhouse. And so I think what we're doing is we're setting up our communities and our children to fail and making the learning gap even larger compared to the broader world.
In the 1950s, Senator Joe McCarthy was a liar. He created the Red Scare and the Lavender Scare on a lie. And he created the lie and sold the lie for his own personal benefit. In the 1950s, Alabama's Governor George Wallace was a liar. And he created a lie to say segregation was going to be justified, and continued to fight even when the National Guard came into Alabama. In 2023, Florida Governor and presidential candidate Ron DeSantis is a liar. He's exactly like Joe McCarthy and exactly like George Wallace. When he says in that clip that we just showed you, he goes all in on Friday, which is so dumb. It's an indication of how arrogant and dumb and a liar he is. You should ask them, I didn't do it. That is a lie.
For sure.
He and his cronies in the ultra supermajority GOP created the law that provides the instruction for the Department of Education to do this. You created the system this year in the session of the legislative session in Tallahassee, and you created it. And when that reporter calls you out on it of giving explanation of what the Department of Education of your state that you lead does, you lie.
He's a coward.
And I want to point out the issue of the blacksmith example. You are an enslaved, indentured person brought to Florida and Alabama and to Mississippi in antebellum pre-Civil War days, and then a Civil War fought. To be able to, in 2023, even suggest that there was something valuable in that, and that at least they learned how to be a blacksmith, is an indication of how perverse and a racist you are. I very much would think that people in 1939 could make great arguments that, wait, we taught the Jews how to build the ovens, so therefore they had a skill. Horrifying, your defense. And the last thing is how ignorant this position of the governor is. Can you imagine how this is playing in the suburbs of Philadelphia among white GOP mothers and women? He's harming himself and the representation of his campaign going down in flames, and people abandoning him. The announcement today of the billionaire in Florida that is reevaluating whether he's going to support DeSantis. Even Donald Trump says this guy is crazy and a liar. And he is.
Next, let's queer up the worldview. Italian government removes non-biological lesbian parents from children's birth certificates. The northern Italian city of Padua has started removing the names of non-biological gay mothers from their children's birth certificates under new legislation passed by the traditional Family First government of Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. These birth certificates belong to 33 children of Italian women who underwent artificial insemination abroad and then registered their children under the city's center-left government, led by Sergio Giordani in 2017. The prosecutor's office in Padua confirmed to CNN that as of Thursday last week, 27 mothers had been removed from 27 birth certificates. Giordani came to power promising to remove the traditional mother and father designations on birth certificate. But this was overturned when Meloni's government ordered local authorities to stop registering the children of same-sex parents with both of their names. The measure means that only the biological parent of a child can be named on a birth certificate. Surrogacy is illegal in Italy, and gay marriage has not been legalized. Because same-sex relationships aren't recognized in law, the non-biological parent has to make the special case for legally adopting their child. The measure also stops the men in same-sex relationships from registering the birth of their child, with both fathers' names instead. They have to choose one to be the legal father. How do we continue to make these rules where they say that it's children first, but yet all they're doing is prolonging harm and hurt to the child? Right. Can you imagine growing up? And then one of the biggest gifts I remember my mother giving me was my birth certificate when I went out to get my job, my first job, my Social Security card. And then you're now being triggered with this news. And think about the current harm to parents who have to now face this piece of paper day after day, although they, can't by law see their name on it. They have to realize this is still my child. They have to face that day by day. This is atrocious, crazy.
Well, Brian Molko, who's the queer frontman of the band Placebo, he was recently performing in Italy, and he called Giorgia Meloni a fascist and a racist. And we can now add virulent homophobe to that list.
Well, we knew that this was coming. We did that story,
right.
And I remember thinking, when you see fascism, say fascism. When you see a fascist, say that they're a fascist. And of course, he is. And by the way, investigating someone for calling you a fascist is a fascist move. Yes. She is, but the thing is, you said the parents can have to look at this, but know that they're still both parents, even though they're not on the birth certificate. For now. Removing them from the birth certificate is the first step. And it's not even a slippery slope. It is a set of stairs that's easy to navigate, and you're going to watch them as they chip away at rights until this government is overturned. And fortunately, it's Italy, and they turn over their governments pretty quickly. But she is terrible, yes.
Terrible. And, the point of the slippery slope is quick. Besides the effect that it has 20 years from now, Elimination's point, you have to ask your question, why? Why is she doing this? Why is Italy doing it? Why is the government going along with it? Why are you doing this? Who are you protecting? What wrong are you righting? What is the issue going on here? It's virtually impossible to answer that question without going, well, because I can. I'm a fascist. And because I hate you, because I'm homophobic. Those are the two answers to the why. It's interesting to me for Italy, to an LGBT audience that would listen to us in Italy and broadly on how this story will be shared and seen in Italy. Italy, you look like Orbán in Hungary, which makes you a pariah in the European community. That's what this decision does. It's not that it affects so far 27 names of names removed from birth certificates. It's a reflection that Italy looks like Hungary, which makes you a pariah. It makes you look like Putin in Russia, where no gay people exist. And so therefore lesbians don't exist, and so therefore have no right to be on the birth certificate. So now you're associating with Russia and Putin type of thinking, which is fascist. And finally, Italy is on this progressive spiral that John talks about, like Ghana and Angola, which has taken it even a step farther to say we are going to criminalize the lesbian and not only take them off of the birth certificate, we're going to do a whole lot worse. And that's what you just said in terms of the slippery slope.
Next, let's queer up entertainment. The 1975 concert stopped in Malaysia due to same-sex kiss. United Kingdom pop band The 1975 had its set at a Malaysian music festival cut short after frontman Matty Healy kissed a male bandmate on stage and criticized the country's anti-LGBTQ laws. Homosexuality is a crime in Muslim-majority Malaysia, and human rights groups have warned of growing intolerance against the country's lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. In videos posted on social media, Healy was seen kissing bassist Ross McDonald after giving a profanity-laden speech to the audience at the Kuala Lumpur music festival Good Vibes on Friday night, in which he criticized the Malaysian government's stance against homosexuality. He said the band had considered pulling out of the show, but did not want to disappoint their fans in Malaysia. Healy later cut short the set, telling the crowd, quote, "All right, we gotta go. We just got banned from Kuala Lumpur. I'll see you later," end quote. Healy was criticized before for kissing a male fan at a 2019 concert in the United Arab Emirates, which also has laws against homosexual acts, according to media reports. In a statement, the Good Vibes Festival organizers said that the 1975 set was stopped due to non-compliance with local performance guidelines. Malaysia's communications minister, Fahmi Fadzil, called the band's performance very disrespectful in a Twitter posting. Well, Matty Healy of the 1975, like Brian Malco, who I just mentioned, is making an excellent use of his platform. He's on this stage, and there are thousands of people in that audience, and he's getting his message across. I strongly applaud Healy, who is straight, for speaking up for us.
Yeah, he's a talented musician. I mean, they put on a good show. I've seen him on YouTube. I haven't been in person, but they seem to put on a good show. He's also, like you said, using his platform. He also just broke up with Taylor Swift. So, you know, if his bassist is looking for a little something new to date, I think we might have a love connection in Kuala Lumpur.
I actually applaud, and I love this, because sometimes we have to push the envelope in order to break change. We have to put it in people's faces in order for the change. You know, I think back to Madonna. Remember how much Madonna got in trouble when she gyrated on bed, and folks were, and the concert promoters were shutting her down.
Kiss Britney Spears.
I mean, you know, just continue to push the envelope. Think about when 2 Live Crew came out with their thing and pushed the envelope. That's how music changed. That's how society changed. And so kudos to that, because what they're doing is showing you can stifle my voice, but you will never stifle my memory, and you will never stifle the point that we're going to now empower others to say, you know what, this is wrong, and we're going to continue to push until change happens.
You know, it's interesting to me that the Malaysian government says it was disrespectful. Who the fuck cares? In the 1990s, when AIDS wasn't being responded to by public policy, and thousands of gay men were dying every month, thousands of gay men. And Larry Kramer said, you know, we're just not getting the attention or the response that we need to address this crisis. ACT UP was created. And today, whether you supported ACT UP's actions or didn't support it, you certainly knew that they had a response in terms of how people like Dr. Anthony Fauci responded. And President Clinton responded to it. Right or wrong, there was a response. Now, it's interesting to me that the 1975 do the same thing in Malaysia and get a response. Okay, good, because that's exactly what that kiss was designed to do. One other thing, the 1975, congratulations to you. The LGBTQ community in America watched your moment in Malaysia and really thanks you for it, because there was a lot of LGBTQ plus people in that audience watching in social media or on television, and will watch the stories afterwards that didn't even know you were performing at Good Vibes Festival and say, wait, thank you very much for standing up for me. And my last recommendation to the 1975, don't come to Florida, because you can't do the exact same thing here. Malaysia and Florida have the same kind of leadership. Fascist.
Next, we queer up the worldview. Hungary's Viktor Orbán accuses the EU of pushing LGBTQ+ offensive. On Saturday, Hungarian Prime Minister Orbán, known for his anti-LGBTQ+ agenda, once again took the opportunity to lambaste the EU and LGBTQ+ community while speaking at a festival in a region of Romania home to a large Hungarian community. He told the audience they had no choice but to fight to defend what he regards as traditional Christian values. Orbán also alleged that the federalists in the EU are trying to squeeze out his government. Orbán also denounced the union for wanting a change in government in 2022. Viktor Orbán and the EU have come to blows over his anti-LGBTQ+ policies. In 2021, Orbán, who has positioned himself as a so-called defender of Hungary's Christian values, introduced a law banning the display and promotion of LGBTQ+ identities among under 18-year-old people. The LGBTQ+ propaganda law has also been used by Orbán's ruling party to attack queer books like Alice Oseman's hit series Heartstopper, censoring a lesbian kiss in an episode of Jessica Jones on state TV, and inciting verbal and physical violence against LGBTQ+ people. Last year, the EU launched legal action against Hungary over legislation saying it discriminates against people based on their sexual orientation and gender identity. And you know, we've been following the despicable things out of Hungary for some time, and they're really setting themselves apart from the rest of the continent. Even Poland has, in part due to the Ukraine war, has become more LGBT friendly, or at least accepting. Hungary is just doubling down, and it's dangerous, but I don't think it's dangerous for people outside of Hungary, because Russia is now such a pariah that I don't really think countries like Turkey or Poland are going to buck EU membership in order to support their LGBTQ+. So I think there's a political advantage in the cards right now.
Well, as someone whose paternal grandmother was born in Hungary, who escaped Hungary's anti-Semitic, quote, traditional Christian values as end quote, as a child, this story makes me fearful about everything that's happening, the rise of the right wing in Eastern Europe. It just feels frighteningly familiar.
I just think it's crazy how folks feel like they can beat something out of someone, or you remove it from black and white and it still doesn't exist when it's always been. And so that's just been so amazing, because all it does to me is it helps people buck the system, because you're going to beat me down, but all I'm going to do is continue to rise and or do it as secret. And we can continue to try to survive until we're able to then cause our own kind of war against. And so when I hear we're going to beat it out of you, or we're going to take it away, or we're not going to publicize it, guess what? All you're doing is make me want to learn it more. You make me push forward.
I'm sorry. Our story today is talking about Orbán in Hungary. We're not talking about Florida. And don't say gay, don't say woke. And let's teach that slaves learn something good by being Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Maybe that wasn't your point. You know, it's interesting to me. Orbán makes the point in Romania, by the way, that he is defending traditional Christian values. Take out defending Christian values and put in parental rights. And you get to the same illogical justifications of the fascist decision-making that defends these kinds of statements. And yes, I'm talking about our governor here in Florida, and I'm talking about the president of Hungary. I agree with John. The walls are closing in on Orbán, because the European Union, unlike what we're seeing in large swaths of the radical Republican control in the United States, are absolutely saying no way, even to the potential that we will censor Hungary. We will withhold millions and millions of euros out of Hungary because of it. And that's one of the principal reasons why Poland has responded the way they did. I just also want to point and make the observation in terms of Orbán's principal premise. He justifies his decision-making based on the overwhelming majority of Christians and Christian values. That is not true. He is claiming something that is not true. The majority of Christians around the world are supportive of LGBT rights, they're supportive of LGBT marriage, and they're supportive of the LGBTQ plus community. He is a minority point of view, justifying it on the majority of Christian value and Christian religion. And then the second thing that I would say is the majority of Christians are not the majority of the decision-making of the top end of decision makers. What goes on at Liberty University, even in Virginia, is not what the majority of Christians in Virginia thinks. And for you to even take a second to justify or think, well, maybe Orbán is right, he isn't. He is taking a position to justify his own stance by using majority rule. And why is he doing that? For power, control, and money. Just like the radical evangelicals in the United States. Orbán in Hungary, the walls are closing in on you.
Next, we're proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10 a.m.
We finish tonight's Queer News headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up education. New Jersey school LGBTQ plus student club accuses of grooming. The West Milford School community members backed the efficacy of the district's Gender and Sexuality Alliance program after a school board member labeled the club a grooming risk in June. District officials said the club will continue as planned this fall, with a current advisor and an English teacher, Catherine Tina Signorelli, set to remain in her role. Signorelli said the club was created to provide a safe space for students to discuss LGBTQ plus issues, and that for several years it has done just that. The club meets every other Monday for an hour after school. First called the Gay Straight Alliance, it was created about 15 years ago by students subjected to harassment over their gender identity and sexual orientation, seeking a hate-free zone.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up business. DeSantis calls for Bud Light investigations over Dylan Mulvaney promotion.
We're going to be launching an inquiry about Bud Light and InBev, and it could be something that leads to a derivative lawsuit filed on behalf of the shareholders of the Florida pension fund.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he's expanding his war on woke and taking on Bud Light directly. He's threatening legal action against Anheuser-Busch over its social media promotion with a transgender influencer. The Instagram video sparked enormous conservative outrage and backlash and sent Bud Light sales plummeting.
We believe that when you take your eye off the ball like that,
you're not following your fiduciary duty to do the best you can for your shareholders.
He's been fighting to gain momentum in the presidential race and to close that gap with Donald Trump.
Presidential candidate and Republican Governor Ron DeSantis wants Florida to investigate its investments in the company that makes Bud Light because of conservative backlash over a transgender social media influencer marketing the beverage. DeSantis said Thursday in a letter to the State Board of Administration that, quote, all options are on the table, end quote. It's a response to Dylan Mulvaney's Instagram post. The governor said that due to the backlash over the post, Anheuser-Busch InBev has suffered sales losses that could affect state investments. He added that the beer manufacturer's radical social ideologies have turned Bud Light into a social pariah, and losses have been staggering.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Pride Fest celebrates LGBTQ plus Caribbean Pride August 12th. Pride Fest is a South Florida LGBTQ plus festival that celebrates the music, food, and spirit of the Caribbean culture in a safe space for the LGBTQ plus community and their allies. The nonprofit is back with the Caribbean Pride event of 2023, which will be held on August 12th. The Pride will take place at Richardson Historic Park and Nature Reserve in Wilton Manors. Hotspots Happening Out has partnered up with the City of Wilton Manors and Pride Fort Lauderdale to bring this celebration to the island city. Become a part of the unique celebration and stand by the community while having fun. Find out more at pridefest.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 minute news. Let's queer up business. New canned vodka soda, Gay Water, hopes to be the anti-Bud Light. In a sea of canned cocktails, Gay Water wants to stand out. The beverage launched Thursday in 35 states and is a brightly colored canned vodka and soda beverage proudly displaying who it's for instead of backing off from support for the LGBTQ plus community as other companies have done in recent months. In other words, where Bud Light has buckled under pressure as bigotry grows against the LGBTQ plus community, Gay Water's creator Spencer Hodison wants his new boozy brand to be the antithesis of that. It's also one of the few openly queer-owned alcohol brands.
That is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience, watching this live LGBTQ plus news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV?
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening on Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Elimination, John Hayden, and Gregg Shapiro. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. And to our LGBTQ plus world, we wish you
good night,
everyone.
We are Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only live daily LGBTQ plus evening news show, brought to you from Happening Out Television Network. We operate in the same model of PBS and NPR, but for the LGBTQ plus community. We educate, inform, and entertain by supporting the 10 pillars of our LGBTQ plus community, with more than 100,000 a week watching us on Roku, Apple Television, and other channels. To keep the story going, we accept donations with 100% transparency. Stay updated and live authentically with Queer News Tonight.